Look, my jacket has like little thumb holes. I didn't even notice when I purchased it. So I went to PAX East this weekend in Boston, Massachusetts, and let's just say there is a reason why it is a 4-day event. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Christian Travis, and I am a smaller content creator here on YouTube making gaming and Pokemon and a whole bunch of other types of content. And I was one of the few lucky people who got a creator pass for PAX East this year, 2024. So that being said, I kind of wanted to talk about my experience at PAX and give you guys sort of some insight to like a PAX experience for a content creator, which to be honest was a great experience, but again, nothing too crazy that you like someone should be jealous of. By the way, this jacket is so hot, it might come off at some point during this video. So for those of you who don't know me, I live in New York State. I live about 45 minutes from New York City, and the Boston Convention Center is about 3.5 hours away from where I live. The badge they gave me actually worked for all 4 days, but I had my full-time 9-to-5 job to worry about, so I only went Saturday and Sunday. But that being said, if I had the time, I could have gone for all 4 days. But anyway, on Saturday, I ended up waking up at like 6 a.m. to head down to Boston, where we got there closer to like 11 with traffic and all that. Guys, I'm already taking this off. It's a jacket. It's hot. It's my apartment. I have no control of the heat. You're gonna have to deal. So it's important to mention here that when you are a content creator or part of media, the people over at PAX actually give you the opportunity to schedule appointments as opposed to a normal attendee that gets to go from booth to play games whenever they're available. This was super helpful because I had no idea where to even begin, and I ended up scheduling, I believe, 5 appointments. One of them fell through, which I'll get into in a moment, but once we got to the convention center, we had to hit the ground running and make way to our first appointment since the drive was so long. That being said, as a creator, you actually get through the lines like a bit faster. So there's a general line just to enter the building, which was pretty fast. It looked big, but we got in within like 15 minutes of getting online. But after that, you're able to just walk over to the media and creator desk and give them your name and just tell them you're here for your ticket. They give it to you within like a couple minutes, and then you're on your way into the convention center. So my first appointment for the day was arguably my favorite game I saw all of PAX, and that was at the Armor Game Studios booth. They showcased to me a game called Snacko, and Snacko is very similar in a way to like Animal Crossing, but it has some sort of charm that I actually prefer over the typical Animal Crossing game. You can farm, you can build, you can design your town, but there's also things like exploring little dungeons where there's like special time trials and stuff that you can try to beat, which is pretty cool. The art style of the game is like a pretty simple 3D environment, but the characters and the sprites are all 2D hand-drawn by one of the developers. That being said, just to state here, this game is made by 2 developers total. Only 2 people were working on it. They were super nice. As we got to the appointment, they set us up in the little corner and demoed the game on a Steam Deck for us, which was super cool of them, and they kind of just explained what they envisioned and what they had planned for the game. Now, when I say this was one of the favorite games I've seen, it seemed so well fleshed out for a game that was like, you know, created by only 2 developers. You can have a car, there's a whole bunch of tools you can make, and then as you progress through the game, kind of like Animal Crossing, you do get more crafting recipes to make your house better, to make your town better, etc. And I had just a blast running around in a little baby sprite car, and it was really cute. So after messing around with that game for a while, I decided that I'm gonna end up purchasing it soon. I have a couple games that I need to finish off first, but it's available for early access on Steam already, and the developers are actively making improvements every single day with new updates and stuff, and new mechanics eventually. So if you're someone who enjoys Animal Crossing, definitely check out Snacko. I believe it is $24.99. And that is a great deal for any type of game. At this point, every game's like $60, $70. So if you want like a fun little, like, I guess farming sim and like customization game, this is definitely something you should look into because I'm definitely going to be playing it. So after we're done with the Snacko booth, we actually had a couple minutes to kill, so we just explored. But then we had another appointment over at the Daylight Basement studio booth, which is where they showed me a game called Rightfully Berry Arms. Now, this is like a roguelike, but you play as a teddy bear, like a cute little teddy bear that a kid owns. And as you're like crawling through all the dungeons and rooms, you unlock different weapons. So like you can have like a laser gun, a mac and cheese gun. There even is a gun just called the finger guns, and when you shoot it, it's just a whole bunch of fingers hitting the enemy. And it's very whimsical and cute. I definitely enjoyed it. This is another game that had a lot of hand-drawn assets, so it was just really nice and refreshing to see people continuing on with this sort of development art style, as opposed to everyone just changing gears to like, I don't know, 3D modeling and stuff. A game doesn't have to be too complicated to be fun. They also mentioned to us that the bosses in the game are based off of things that like a child would find scary. So like a bat. They also mentioned there was like a raincoat or a yellow jacket that's literally just, like I said, a raincoat. And throughout the game, they also mentioned there will be like story, like stuff involving story and lore, so you can figure out exactly what's going on. So if you are interested in a roguelike, but you want to have like a silly old time, definitely check out Rightfully Berry Arms, because they are so cute. This is another game that's going on the list of games that I have to play. If you are interested in playing it now, it's currently on Steam for early access, and I believe it's $9.99 typically, but I think it's on sale for like $6.99. Definitely check that out. It looks like it's endless hours of fun and things to unlock and play. From there, we had another appointment with Midwest Games, and they took the opportunity to show us 2 different games. The first one was called Rah Rah Boom, and that is like a beat 'em up featuring a whole female cast. And the vibes I get from it is like you are playing as this kind of task force that's in the middle of a war, and each character has like their own abilities and like skills that you can use when playing. This game can play up to 4 people, which I think is pretty sick. I think the big thing this year has been art style, because this was another beautifully looking game. Everything is 2D, but everything looked so crisp and so well drawn that I was like in awe looking at it. It reminded me a little bit of a comic. The demo was pretty short, but it's still actively in development, and it's not an early access or anything, so there's no current release date set, but you are able to wish list it on Steam so you can be notified when they have an official release date. Hey guys, quick interruption. If you're enjoying the video, make sure to slam that subscribe button. I make a whole bunch of gaming and Pokemon, tech, all this fun stuff of content. I would just really appreciate it as we try to make our way towards the next milestone on the channel. While we were there, we also got a chance to take a look at a different game they had, and it was called Duck Paradox. This one was really cute. So this is another roguelike, which I feel like roguelikes have been getting more and more popular within the past few years. But this one, you play as a scientist trying to find all of her ducks through, like, I guess different dimensions. That's the vibe I get. But there's a catch to it that I think makes it a little more complicated than other roguelikes. And that's the fact that when you find a duck, you end up getting like attacked by an enemy or a dark looking duck. And you have to kind of fend it off to protect you and your duck that you found. The catch here, though, is the fact that all of your bullets ricochet and bounce off the walls. So you can't just shoot all over the place trying to get rid of this duck. You have to actually like make sure your aim is good and you can get out of the way if the bullet ricochets against the wall. It was really hard, and I just kept dying every single time I tried. I totally see this being like a game that someone who wants to shake things up if they're into roguelikes and just want something a little bit different. It's a silly concept, it's really nice, and I personally just think that if you do enjoy this genre of games, it's definitely something you should pick up. So Duck Paradox is also currently out on early access on Steam for, I believe it is $14.99, but it is on sale currently for $9.99. So if you want to try it out, definitely do so. I feel like all these games have been fun enough that they're worth the price that they're charging. From that point, I had my final appointment for the day, and that was actually at the Limited Run booth. For those of you who aren't familiar with Limited Run, they create a whole bunch of like physical ports of a whole bunch of digital only released games, and they also work on a whole bunch of original stuff too. And as they're expanding their business, there's just so many different projects that they're working on. As we headed over to the Limited Run booth, we ended up having some sort of a conflict with our appointment. We scheduled it for 3:30 like weeks ago, but as we showed up, they had some sort of signing going on, so they apologized and asked us to come back. We ended up coming back like an hour later, but the team seemed to be having a meeting. But luckily, one employee was nice enough to let us get our hands on their current like original game they're working on, which was Rugrats Adventures in Gameland. So the funny thing here is that I thought this was a game I previously played back in the day when I had a Game Boy, because it just looked so similar. But After talking to the developer, they were actually telling me that this was a full original game that's supposed to be in the style of these older Game Boy games. And I thought the cool thing about it is that you had the choice to choose like their current modern day graphics, or you could like swap the graphics to mimic that of older game consoles, which like changes the experience in a good way, but doesn't change the gameplay aspect of it. Everything, all the physics, everything like was basically exactly the same. It just was really cool to see, especially them taking an IP that I feel like has already ran its course for most people and bring it back. And they also told us a little bit about how they referred to the original IP a lot to try to include some Easter eggs, some callbacks, and other cool stuff throughout the game, so people can basically enjoy it for what it is. And honestly, it was just an awesome 2D platformer that looked really good on whatever monitor or TV they were showing it to us on. And I personally haven't had like the desire to play like those older style 2D platformers, but while I was standing there playing it, it actually like scratched some sort of itch in my brain where I was just like, oh, this is satisfying. This is good. I want to keep playing this. So I asked them when the game's going to be released, and they have no set date yet, but they said probably spring of this year, which is coming soon. So hopefully within the next few weeks, they'll be able to tell us an exact date, and you'll be able to keep an eye out for that. So guys, that as far as being a creator, that's basically the only like benefits we got. We got to make appointments for the games instead of having to wait in line for them. We got to get our badges fairly quickly compared to other people who would have to pick up their badges at the convention center itself. And then everything else was pretty like status quo. Like, still had to wait in line for other events, booths and stuff hanging out there. I did stop at a couple booths to try to quote unquote network and just introduce myself for future opportunities. So after that, we basically just hung around until like 7 o'clock so we can make it to the Nintendo Gone Mad panel, which I wanted to go to this panel really badly because there were a couple people on here that I like have heard of and thought were interesting prior. And the first one was hosted by an IGN alum and Limited Games project manager Jared Petty. There was also the IGN executive editor and Nintendo Voice Chat podcast host Seth Macy, who I listen to IGN's podcasts all the time, every single week. So I was really excited to try to like say hello to Seth. It was really awesome. Seth, you seemed really cool. If you're seeing this, probably not, but I do appreciate you taking the time to say hello to me. They also had a gentleman named Seth Kuljerson, which I believe that's how you pronounce it. If it isn't, please correct me in the comments. Who is a freelance developer. We had Nania Oxford, who was a freelancer for the industry. And then we had Ash Said Hi, who is just a really popular retro streamer on Twitch. And they were all really cool. The whole panel was dedicated to just looking into the Zelda CDI games that came out years ago. Talk about why they're so like memeable now, why they still get brought up, even though like the games themselves were terrible. They also had a special guest, which was one of the people who created all the background art, which arguably is like the only good thing about the Zelda CDI games. So he talked about the process, how basically all the teams were working on everything at once, so there was no way to actually collaborate. So like the team making the backgrounds like had one artistic look, and then the people making the characters had a different one. And they also surprised us by having one like extra guest, which was the voice of Link in the CDI games. And he came up, said a couple lines, talked about the games themselves, and then he popped back off the stage, and we continued just talking about the whole reason why these games are so relevant in pop culture and whatnot.
Gee, sure is boring around here.
So at this point after the panel, it was about like 8 o'clock, 8:15ish. I ended up meeting up with another content creator named Triss and a whole bunch of other content creators that I met for the first time there. Triss works for Game Explain, and I just wanted to get to know some more people and other content creators. So we ended up meeting up to play some card games for about an hour. And by that point, I'd been up from like 6 a.m. to like at this point like 9:30 p.m. and we haven't even stopped at the hotel yet. So I ended up hanging out with them for like an hour, and I told them that I'd meet up with them the next day. So that was my first day. The second day was a lot shorter. I only had like a few things I wanted to check off my list, but guys, I'm like I'm not exaggerating when I say like there is a reason why these events are 4 days. There was so much to do. They had games done quick, like room where people were speed running and raising money for charity. There were a whole bunch of different tabletop rooms where you can like buy games and then just start playing it with your friends. After like 5 o'clock, when the main floor closes, the gaming area for tabletop games is still open. There's private rooms that you can take, and there's just panels running all day and night. Like I said, the panel I went to was at 7 o'clock, and I think there were still a couple panels that were going on afterward. So I believe the convention center ends up closing around midnight, but we ended up leaving around 9 p.m. and ended up going back around like 11 the next day. It was at this point that where we got to the convention center that I had to meet Pikachu or Eevee at the Nintendo booth. Yeah, so basically they had actually 2 different Pokemon booths. One was the actual Pokemon company that put it on. They had an area so you could play the TCG. I didn't get a chance to play that because every time we walked by, the line was capped and out the door, and I wasn't feeling nervy enough to be like,
hey, I'm a content creator, can I get in?
That wasn't gonna happen. So we just like kept walking by and seeing that the line was capped and they wouldn't let anybody else on. But basically, from my understanding, is like you do like a Pokemon TCG demo and they let you keep the like a deck of cards that they give you for the demo, and I believe you get like a pin or something. It looked really cool. I wish I could have popped in there, but that's totally fine. It happens. And then they had the Nintendo booth, which I thought was super interesting that Princess Peach Showtime just released that week, but they ended up going with like a Pokemon themed booth, considering that the Pokemon company was already there. So they ended up just having like an area where painters were making like a mural from scratch. Other people can like add stuff to it. And then on the opposite side of the booth, they had an area where you can have a meeting with Eevee or Pikachu. When I went, Eevee was only there. So I got super excited. I took a video, and there's like a video of me dancing with Eevee. It was a great time. And honestly, I had such a fun time exploring and getting to see the other things that PAX had to offer. I didn't mention the second day that I was there, I did a whole bunch of interview content, messed it up. Everything was filmed in slow motion with no sound, so I couldn't even just speed it up. And I ended up meeting Nemesis, which if you guys don't know, she's a drag queen online who does a lot of gaming content, and I've been following her for months, and I didn't realize until after I interviewed her that she was who she was. I like stopped and I was like, do I know you? Are you like on social media? And she's like,
yeah, I've had some stuff pop off recently.
And I was like, dude, I think I know you. And then I asked her name, and she was like,
Nemesis.
And I was like, oh my god, I do know you. And I ended up just like fangirling for a second, but also like that footage of me interviewing her is now gone and useless. As for purchases at PAX, I actually tried not to spend too much money. Even though we got the ticket for free, we still had to pay for the hotel room, gas, food. All that just racks up so much cash at the end of the day. And I ended up just buying 2 single things. I ended up getting this, which is Persona 3. This is the original version that came out for the PSP that limited run ended up porting over to Xbox One. So it has a whole bunch of content that's not in the remake that I think it's Persona 3 Reloaded that was cut out of that version, but it's still in this one. So I wanted to grab that one because I have yet to play the game. And then I also got the jacket that you guys saw me wearing earlier. It's very nice. It was like $92, I believe. Was pretty expensive, but this is a jacket that I believe that I'll be wearing a lot. Quite often, and it's like thinner than a lot of my other jackets, so if it's just a little chilly, I'd be able to just put this one on. Other than that, we got some little goodies from the developers that we visited when looking at their games. I got like this cute little duck that says Duck Paraducks on it when we did their demo. I ended up getting like a pin at one point and a whole bunch of like little stuff, like I think I have like a wristband or something, and we ended up getting like this cute little guy from like the people over at Snacko. It's like a little cute little kitty keychain thing, which I'm probably going to end up throwing on my keys at some point. So yeah, guys, so things I probably learned from this event. The first one being, don't overpack. I had so much that I didn't need. I had so many different hard drives, and things were just so fast paced that I didn't get to record as much as I wanted to. But definitely, like, it was just holding me down all day, and it was painful at the end of the day, and I was so relieved when I was finally able to put down my backpack. Also, I learned to pack like HDMI to DisplayPort cable. I had an HDMI cable for my capture card so I could film different footage, and a lot of people were using display ports or USB-C to HDMI and stuff like that, and all I had was the HDMI cord, so I had to end up recording everything manually, or some developers send keys so you could play their demo at home and capture your own footage. So depending on what you're seeing, you either know I had to film it right then and there, or they sent me the key when I got home. And I guess the last thing I learned was that, like, if I'm gonna do this again, I might have to stay for all 4 days. There was just so much to do. I felt so overwhelmed. But yeah, guys, that was basically my time at PAX East. I'm definitely going to try to stay longer next year if I have the finances to do so. And I just wanted to thank you guys so much for tuning into this video. I really do appreciate it. We are so close to getting the channel monetized. And then our next milestone is going to be trying to get 100,000 subscribers on YouTube so we can get that silver play button. And I really do appreciate you guys sticking around for the video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a thumbs up. It really does help out and pushes it in the video in the algorithm. And let me know, what is like the coolest thing you've seen out of PAX in the comments below, because I'd be really interested what I missed. I know I had a appointment for Killer Clowns from Outer Space, but they canceled on me like a week before. I know a lot of people loved that, but you let me know.